The night my father's boat went up in flames, they thought they'd broken me. They thought fire and smoke would drive me out, that I'd pack my things and leave Lake Thornton behind. They were wrong, because the fire didn't end me, it started their downfall. I moved to Lake Thornton for peace. After 28 years in the Coast Guard, I wanted nothing more than quiet mornings, sawdust on my hands from woodworking, and evenings on the dock with my father's boat. She was more than fiberglass and teak. She was memory. My father spent years restoring her before cancer took him. When I ran my hands across her deck, I felt like he was still there. Every plank, every polished brass fitting was a conversation with him. Life settled into a rhythm. My cabin wasn't much, but it had a view that made you forget the rest of the world existed. On weekends, I taught kids from the community how to sail, just like my father had taught me. I didn't charge them a dime. Passing on that knowledge felt like honoring him. Neighbors waved, some stopped to chat, but mostly, I kept to myself. It was the kind of quiet retirement most men dream of, and I thought I'd finally earned it. Then she appeared. Darlene Vickrage, president of the Emerald Shores HOA for more than a decade. Perfect hair, perfect car, perfect smile, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. She controlled a budget in the millions, and she used that power like a weapon. Some people feared her, others worshipped her, but I didn't care. I'd spent too many nights in storms at sea to be intimidated by a woman in a Lexus. At least that's what I believed. For a while, our paths didn't cross. I minded my own business, she minded hers, and I thought we'd stay that way. But power like hers always craves a new target. It wasn't long before my doc caught her attention. Letters started arriving. Petty complaints turned into threats. And with every envelope, I felt a storm building on the horizon. I didn't know it yet, but the peace I thought I'd earned was already slipping away. It began with a certified letter. Darlene claimed my dock encroached on HOA waters by 2 feet. 2 feet. According to her, I owed $5,000 in fines unless I tore it back. I wasn't about to let that slide. So I hired a surveyor. $800 later, I had proof. My dock sat entirely on my deeded property. I presented the evidence at the next board meeting. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, burnt coffee smell in the air, Darlene at the head of the table like a queen on her throne. She glanced at my documents, tapped her gavel once and said, "The board will review this." They never did. Instead, the retaliation began. My truck was ticketed and nearly towed, even though I was parked legally. County inspectors appeared at my door, claiming someone reported unpermitted structures. Anonymous complaints stacked up in my mailbox. At neighborhood cookouts, I overheard the whispers. Some people think rules don't apply to them. Then, at the 4th of July barbecue, I heard something I wasn't meant to. Darlene stood by the grill, wine glass in hand, chatting with a developer. I was reaching for a plate of ribs when I caught her words. "Once we clear that eyesore dock, the lot's worth double." She wasn't just trying to enforce rules. She wanted me gone. That night, sitting on my porch with fireworks popping in the distance, I realized the truth. This wasn't about regulations. It was about power, money, and control. And I had just become her target. August heat pressed down like a weight. I came home from a weekend visiting my daughter to find neon orange letters sprayed across my father's boat. Welfare sailor on one side, go home on the other. The paint was still wet. I called the sheriff's office. Deputy Crowley, a good man and former Marine, arrived and took photos. "Could have been kids," he muttered. But we both knew kids didn't have gate codes for the marina. He leaned close and whispered, "Get cameras, and maybe a lawyer." Off the record, I've seen HOAs do worse. The next day, the HOA sent an email blast about unsightly vessels violating community standards. They didn't need to name me. Everyone knew. The timing wasn't coincidence. And yet, the worst part wasn't the graffiti or the humiliation. It was the cold rage settling inside me. Not anger that made you reckless. The other kind. The kind that sharpens you. Weeks later, Darlene herself slowed her white Lexus in front of my house. She stared at my cameras, lips pressed into a thin line, before gunning the engine and roaring off. I'd spent enough time at sea to recognize the signs. A storm was coming. And then, one night, it arrived. It was just after 2 in the morning when I woke to the sound of an explosion. Not Hollywood big, but enough to rattle the windows. Smoke filled the air before I was fully awake. By the time I ran outside, the horizon runner, my father's boat, my connection to him, was engulfed. Flames roared 15 feet into the night sky, heat searing my face from 30 feet away. Fiberglass cracked and bubbled, dripping into the lake like wax. Neighbors stumbled from their homes, someone dialed 911, but there was nothing left to save. The fire marshal confirmed what I already knew: arson. Gasoline poured on the deck. 2 figures caught on my cameras, faces hidden, sprinting away into a dark sedan. The next day, the HOA posted on Facebook, "Tragic accident at the marina. Please remember to follow fire safety codes." Accident. They had the nerve to call it an accident. I sat on the grass until sunrise, staring at the smoking skeleton of the boat I'd spent 3 years restoring. My father's legacy reduced to ash. And as the sun broke over Lake Thornton, I made myself a promise. They would regret the night they lit that fire. Grief can break you or forge you into something stronger. I chose the latter. I remembered something my divorce lawyer once told me. Public records are powerful. HOAs file financials. Many are subject to state disclosure laws. So I dug. Nights spent scrolling through county records, contract filings, invoices. And what I found was filth. Darlene had created a shell company. Payments from the HOA, tens of thousands, funneled into her own pocket. Inflated consulting fees, fake maintenance contracts, and board stipends that violated bylaws. I had receipts. So, I built a website, emeraldshorseaccountability.com. First post, proof my doc was legal. Second, photos of Darlene's son's oversized Jeep parked in violation of the same rule she fined others for. Third, the invoices, cold, hard numbers. The site exploded overnight. Neighbors shared it across Facebook groups. Some cheered me, others warned me I was playing with fire. By Thursday, I received a letter from the HOA's attorneys. Take it all down or face a $50,000 lawsuit. I scanned the letter, posted it online with a note. Truth is a defense. See you in court. They thought they could drown me in paperwork. Instead, I was about to drown them in evidence. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Marisol, a neighbor fined thousands for hedge height violations, joined me. She brought coffee and determination. Evelyn, a retired paralegal, offered her legal expertise. And Theo, an old Coast Guard buddy turned forensic accountant, dove into the numbers. Together, we traced nearly $200,000 stolen through shell companies and inflated contracts. Theo prepared reports solid enough for court. Evelyn drafted letters holding board members personally liable. Marisol rallied quiet support from neighbors too afraid to speak up. We didn't just shine a light, we froze their accounts. With evidence in hand, I sent certified demands to the HOA's bank. Within days, SunTrust froze the funds pending investigation. Darlene couldn't pay her lawyers, couldn't pay for landscaping, couldn't even keep the clubhouse lights on. And then, one evening, she showed up at my porch. No makeup, hair undone, voice cracking. "Please," she begged, "call it off. I'll resign. Just stop." I thought of my father's boat, of the fire, of the graffiti, and I closed the door in her face. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of the truth finally catching up. The Attorney General's office took the case. State investigators uncovered embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. The SBI pulled Darlene's son into questioning, and he cracked. Gasoline residue in his car matched the accelerant from my boat. Texts from his mother ordered him to handle the boat situation. The empire Darlene built on fear crumbled overnight. Board members turned on each other. Hank, the vice president, struck a deal to testify. Paige, her own sister, handed over emails and financial logs. Darlene wasn't just facing fines. She was facing prison. They thought fire would silence me. Instead, it lit the fuse that destroyed them. My father used to say calm seas never made a skilled sailor. He was right. They torched his boat to intimidate me, but all they did was give me the fight of my life, and I won.